I spent 10 years building a life I could be proud of. Steady job, solid savings, independence since I was 22. But none of that mattered the night my mom called with that shaky voice talking about a family emergency. My older brother Brandon was in serious financial trouble. $40,000 in debt. I felt my stomach drop, worried about what this meant for him. I had no idea what was coming next. Before we dive into what happened, let me know in the comments where you are watching from. If this story resonates with you, hit that like button and subscribe, because what happened next completely shattered everything I believed about family loyalty. Let me take you through this journey. I drove to my parents' house that Saturday evening with my heart racing. The moment I walked through the door, I could feel the tension thick in the air. My dad sat on the old brown couch, with his arms crossed, looking more serious than I had seen him in years. Mom stood by the kitchen doorway, wringing her hands together, unable to meet my eyes. And there in the corner chair sat Brandon, my 35-year-old brother, staring down at his phone, like it held all the answers he needed. Dad cleared his throat and got straight to it. Brandon owed $40,000. The number hung in the air like smoke. I blinked, trying to process what I just heard. 40,000. That was not a credit card bill you forgot to pay. That was not an unexpected car repair. That was a mountain of financial disaster. I looked at Brandon. He finally put his phone down and started explaining, his words coming out slow and hesitant. 15,000 on credit cards. He said he needed new electronics, wanted to take some trips, treat himself after rough months at work. Then, 10,000 from a personal loan he took out to invest in cryptocurrency. That investment crashed within months. Another 8,000 financed a car he could not actually afford, a sleek sedan that made him feel successful, even when his bank account said otherwise. And 7,000 borrowed from friends and acquaintances over the past 2 years. Money he kept promising to pay back. Next month, always next month. I sat there trying to understand. How does someone let it get this bad? I asked him directly. Why did you not control your spending? Why keep borrowing when you knew you could not pay it back? Brandon shifted in his seat, defensive. He said he lost his job last year, that the pressure of looking successful was overwhelming, that everyone expected him to have it together. He talked about needing to maintain his image, about how hard it was to admit he was struggling. But none of it explained the $40,000 sitting on his shoulders like a boulder. Then my mom spoke up, her voice, soft but pointed. She said I needed to help Brandon pay off this debt. She said it like it was obvious, like there was no other option on the table. My dad leaned forward and added his weight to the request. Family helps family, he said. I had a good job, I had been saving money. Surely I could spare some to help my brother out of this hole. I felt something cold settle in my chest. I said no, politely but firmly. This was Brandon's responsibility. He made these choices. He needed to learn how to manage his finances, not have someone else clean up the mess. The room went silent for 3 long seconds. Then my mom's face twisted with anger. She called me selfish. She said my own brother was drowning, and I was just going to stand there and watch. My dad's expression hardened. He reminded me that they raised me, fed me, gave me a home. Now I was refusing to help my own flesh and blood. Brandon said nothing. He just sat there looking at the floor, not defending me, not telling them to stop. I felt memories rush back. All those years growing up when Brandon got the new laptop for college and I had to use the old desktop that crashed every other day. When Brandon's tuition got paid in full by our parents while I took out loans and worked 2 part-time jobs just to cover my classes. Birthday parties thrown for Brandon with 30 people, and catered food, while I got a quiet family dinner at the kitchen table. When Brandon graduated and could not find work, he lived at home rent-free for 2 years. When I graduated, Dad told me it was time to be independent, and I had to move out within 3 months. I held my ground. I would not lend money. But I offered something else. I could help Brandon create a budget, look for extra work, find ways to cut spending, and pay down the debt over time. Real solutions. My dad shook his head. We do not need advice, he said. We need money. I left that night with a weight pressing down on my shoulders. The whole drive home I kept asking myself if I was really being selfish. $40,000 was 3 years of my savings. Every dollar represented early mornings, late nights, skipped vacations, careful choices. Could I really just hand that over? The phone calls started the next day. My mom called 5 times on Monday alone. My dad sent long text messages about duty and family values. Brandon sent messages too, apologizing but still emphasizing how desperate he was. Then aunts and uncles started calling. My parents had told their version of the story, painting me as the heartless younger son who refused to help his struggling brother. Aunt Linda called me ungrateful. Uncle Robert sent paragraphs about how family matters more than money. Cousin Marcus said he was disappointed in me, that $40,000 was not even that much for someone with my job. My mom escalated her tactics. She said if Brandon had to declare bankruptcy, the whole family would be humiliated. My dad sent a message saying families remember who shows up and who turns their back. I started losing sleep. I would lie awake at 3 in the morning wondering if I was making the right choice, or if I really was as selfish as they claimed. Wednesday afternoon, I was sitting at my desk going through spreadsheets when my phone rang. The caller ID showed Wells Fargo, my bank. I answered, and the woman on the other end introduced herself as a security specialist. She said someone had tried to access my account. My heart stopped. She explained that at 9 that morning, a person walked into their branch location and presented a photocopy of my driver's license. Not the original. A photocopy. This person requested to withdraw $5,000 in cash. The teller felt something was off. The signature did not match what they had on file. The ID was a blurry copy. They denied the request and froze my account temporarily as a security measure. I could barely breathe. I asked her to describe the person. Male, she said. Around 35 years old. Brown hair. About 5 feet 9 inches tall. The description matched Brandon perfectly. I told my supervisor I had a family emergency and left work immediately. 20 minutes later, I was at the bank sitting across from the branch manager. I asked to see the security camera footage. They pulled it up on the computer screen. There he was, my brother, clear as day. Standing at the counter, handing over that photocopied license, trying to take my money. I spent the next hour securing everything, changed all my passwords, added a special PIN that only I would know, set up 2-factor authentication on every account. I asked them what else I could do. The manager suggested I might want to consider moving my funds to a new account entirely, one that no one in my family knew about. I told her I would think about it. But first, I needed answers. I drove straight to my parents' house. I did not call ahead. I just showed up, walked through the front door, and found all 3 of them in the living room. I pulled out my phone and showed them the screenshot I had taken of the security footage. Brandon at the bank counter holding my identification. I asked the question I already knew the answer to. Who gave Brandon a copy of my driver's license? My mom looked away. My dad tried to deflect. He said Brandon was just going to borrow a little bit up front, that he was going to tell me about it later. As if that made it okay. As if stealing and asking for forgiveness was an acceptable family value. My mom finally broke. Her voice cracked as she admitted they thought I would say no to lending money, so they came up with this plan instead. My dad backed her up, saying it was family money anyway, that I would get it back eventually. So what was the harm? The harm I felt my hands shaking. I asked them if they understood what they had done. This was fraud. This was a crime. They tried to steal from me. Brandon finally spoke. He said he was sorry, but he was truly desperate. Like desperation justified breaking the law. Like desperation gave him the right to betray his own brother. I demanded to know exactly how this happened. My dad confessed they had gone through my old belongings still stored in their attic 3 days earlier. They found my expired driver's license from 2 years ago. They made a photocopy. They gave it to Brandon. The plan was for him to withdraw $5,000 as a test. If it worked, they were going to keep going. Just take more and more of my money. They convinced themselves they were going to pay it back in a few months, so it was basically okay. my mom started crying. She asked if I was really going to call the police on my own brother. She said I was cruel, heartless. How could I even think about doing something like that? My dad raised his voice. No family takes each other to court, he said. No family destroys each other over money. But they had no problem trying to destroy my financial security. They had no problem plotting to drain my accounts. The double standard was so thick, I could choke on it. Every moment of my childhood flashed through my mind. Every time they chose Brandon over me. Every time they praised him for doing the bare minimum, while ignoring my actual achievements. When I graduated with honors, they said, "Good job," but reminded me Brandon had done the same thing once. When I bought my first house at 27, they could not come to the key ceremony, because they were on vacation with Brandon. I stood up. I looked at all three of them, and said it clearly. I would not give a single dollar, not 1 cent. And if Brandon, or anyone else, tried to access my accounts again, I would report it to the police. No warnings, no second chances. My mom gasped, like I had slapped her. Brandon tried to plead. He said he might lose his house if he could not pay his debts. I told him that was the consequence of his decisions, not my responsibility, not my problem. My dad stared at me like he did not recognize his own son. I walked out. The next morning I took action. Real concrete action to protect myself. I went back to the bank and sat down with the branch manager again. We closed my old checking and savings accounts completely. Then I drove across town to a Chase Bank branch and opened entirely new accounts. I transferred every dollar I had. I set up alerts for every single transaction, no matter how small. I created security questions with answers. No one in my family could possibly guess. I made sure that my money was finally truly safe. Then I did something I never thought I would do. I scheduled a consultation with a lawyer. The consultation was free, just 30 minutes to discuss my options. The lawyer listened to everything and told me Brandon's actions constituted attempted financial fraud. He said I had grounds to file a formal police report. He advised me to document everything. Save the bank footage. Save every text message, every email, every piece of evidence. Even if I chose not to press charges immediately, I needed that paper trail. I thought about it hard. I decided not to call the police right away. But I kept everything, every screenshot, every recording of voicemails, every threatening message from family members, just in case. Then I wrote an email. I sent it to my parents and Brandon. I kept it professional and clear. I outlined exactly what had happened. I stated that I would not be providing any financial assistance. I warned that any further attempts to access my accounts or finances would result in legal action. I requested they not contact me for 30 days. I needed space. I needed peace. I copied my lawyer on the email, creating an official record. The response was explosive. My parents went nuclear. They called every relative they could think of and told them a twisted version of the story. In their telling, I was the villain who refused to help my struggling brother and then threatened him with police. They left out the part where Brandon tried to commit fraud. They left out the part where they helped him do it. Aunt Linda called me screaming. She said I did not know the meaning of gratitude, that my parents raised me and this was how I repaid them. Uncle Robert sent me long messages about how family comes before everything, how money is temporary but blood is forever. Cousin Marcus sent a short text saying he was disappointed in me, that $40,000 was nothing compared to family bonds. My mom created a large family group chat with about 20 members. She posted asking if anyone could help Brandon with his financial difficulties. When someone asked why I was not helping, she wrote that I had refused and even threatened my own brother. I got tagged over and over. Messages poured in calling me selfish, greedy, heartless. I left the group chat. I blocked the phone numbers of the relatives who kept harassing me. I kept in contact with only 3 people who actually understood what happened. Uncle Tony, my dad's youngest brother, who used to work in banking. Aunt Emma, my mom's younger sister who always saw through the favoritism. And my cousin Daniel, who had his own issues with family financial manipulation. Uncle Tony called me privately. I told him everything. I sent him the security footage. He was shocked. He told me I did the right thing. Then he did something I did not expect. He posted the truth in that family group chat. He wrote that everyone needed to know what really happened. He explained that Brandon had attempted to illegally access my bank account. He attached the security camera image with my permission. He explained this was not about helping family. This was about criminal behavior. Aunt Emma backed him up. She said if someone tried to steal from her children, she would call the police too. What I did was not cruel. It was self-preservation. The group went silent. A few people sent me private apologies. Aunt Linda stopped calling. Uncle Robert deleted his old messages and said nothing more. My parents were furious with Uncle Tony, but they could not deny the photographic evidence. Then something else happened. Brandon's house of cards started falling apart publicly. One of his friends, a guy named Keith, commented in the group chat that Brandon owed him $3,000 from last year and never paid it back, despite constant promises. Another person, a woman named Diane, revealed Brandon had borrowed $2,500 from her to go on a trip to Las Vegas. Suddenly, people started realizing Brandon had a pattern. This was not a one-time desperate situation. This was years of irresponsible choices catching up to him. 2 months passed. Brandon could not keep up with his debts. He filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. The court process was humiliating for him. He lost the fancy car he could not afford. The bank repossessed it right from the driveway. His credit score dropped so low he could not even get approved for a basic credit card. He had to move back in with our parents sleeping in his old childhood bedroom at 35 years old. Eventually he found a job, but it paid 40% less than what he used to make. My parents had to face reality. They discovered Brandon had even more debts they did not know about. Personal loans from coworkers, money borrowed from neighbors. They ended up using $10,000 from their retirement savings to help him pay off the most urgent debts, the ones with threats of legal action. They were furious, but they did it anyway. They could not help themselves. The relationship between my parents and me was completely broken. We did not speak for 6 months. No phone calls, no text messages, nothing. Holidays came and went without any contact. I spent Thanksgiving with friends. Christmas was quiet at my apartment. Part of me felt relieved. Part of me felt sad. Both feelings were true at the same time. The family drama died down gradually. After Uncle Tony exposed the truth, most relatives stopped taking sides publicly. The group chat dissolved. People stopped talking about it. Life moved on. But I had to deal with the emotional aftermath. The first 2 months were brutal. I felt lonely, especially during those holiday seasons when everyone posts pictures of family gatherings. I kept asking myself if I had been too harsh, if maybe I should have just given them some money to keep the peace. I missed the good memories from childhood before I understood the favoritism when things felt simpler. I started having trouble sleeping. My mind would race at 3 in the morning, replaying every conversation, every argument, every accusation. I would wonder if I was the bad guy in this story. Month 3, I made a decision that changed everything. I started seeing a therapist. His name was Dr. Harrison. He specialized in family dynamics and boundary issues. In our first session, I told him everything. He listened without judgment. Then he said something that stuck with me. He said loving someone does not mean accepting their harmful behavior. He said protecting yourself is not the same as punishing them. We worked on understanding healthy boundaries. I learned that saying no is a complete sentence. I learned that I did not owe anyone access to my money, my accounts, or my peace of mind, just because we shared DNA. I learned to forgive myself for doubting my own decisions. Months 4 through 6 brought more healing. I joined a support group for adult children of dysfunctional families. I met people with similar stories. One guy, a man named Marcus around my age, had been financially exploited by his parents for years before he finally cut them off. We became close friends. We would meet for coffee and talk about the guilt, the anger, the confusion. It helped knowing I was not alone. I threw myself into my career. My boss noticed my dedication and my strong work ethic. 7 months after everything exploded, I got promoted to senior accountant. My salary increased by 20%. I put more money into my retirement accounts. I started planning for a future that I was building entirely on my own terms. Month 9, I started dating. Her name was Jessica. I met her through a mutual friend at a dinner party. On our 3rd date, I told her about my family situation. I expected her to run. Instead, she said she respected me for standing up for myself. She said it took strength to set boundaries with people you love. Our relationship grew slowly, built on honesty and mutual respect. She never pushed me to reconcile with my family. She just supported whatever decision I made. By month 12, I felt different, lighter. The guilt had faded. I no longer questioned whether I did the right thing. I knew I did. I was sleeping through the night. I was laughing more. I had built a life surrounded by people who valued me for who I was, not for what I could give them. Then something unexpected happened. One afternoon, my phone rang. It was my dad. I almost did not answer, but something made me pick up. His voice sounded different, older, tired. He said he wanted to talk. He said he had been doing a lot of thinking over the past year. He apologized. Actually apologized. He said he was sorry for not protecting me when I needed it. Sorry for enabling Brandon for so many years. Sorry for asking me to sacrifice my financial security. He admitted he and my mom had always favored Brandon, and he was only now realizing how much damage that favoritism had caused. Not just to me, but to Brandon too. By always bailing Brandon out, they never taught him to be responsible. They crippled him. My dad did not ask me to forgive him right away. He did not ask to restart our relationship like nothing happened. He just said he wanted me to know he understood now. He understood he was wrong. I sat there holding the phone, feeling emotions I did not expect. Relief, sadness, gratitude. I thanked him for calling. I thanked him for having the courage to apologize. I told him I needed more time, but I appreciated his words. I said maybe someday we could rebuild something. Not the same relationship as before, but something new. Something healthier. My mom never called. She still believed Brandon was the victim in all of this. She still thought I should have just helped without question. I accepted that not everyone would change. Not everyone would understand. And that was okay. I could not control her choices. I could only control mine. Looking back on everything, I learned lessons I will carry for the rest of my life. I learned that boundaries are not walls meant to shut people out. They are guidelines that protect your well-being, while still allowing space for love. Setting a boundary does not make you selfish. It makes you healthy. When I refused to hand over my savings, I was not abandoning my brother. I was refusing to enable his irresponsible behavior. There is a massive difference between supporting someone and allowing them to drag you down with them. I learned that every person must take responsibility for their own choices. Brandon made decisions that led to $40,000 in debt. Those were his decisions, his consequences. My job was never to rescue him from those consequences. In fact, by refusing to bail him out, I gave him the opportunity to learn to grow, to become responsible. It was the kindest thing I could have done, even though it felt cruel in the moment. I learned that family is supposed to be built on mutual respect, not one-sided sacrifice. Real love does not demand that you destroy yourself to save someone else. Real love does not ask you to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. The people who truly care about you will respect your limits. They will not try to guilt you or manipulate you or steal from you. I learned that blood relation does not give anyone the right to exploit you. You can love your family from a distance. You can wish them well without giving them access to your bank account or your peace of mind. You can honor your parents without obeying their every demand. You are allowed to protect yourself. Most importantly, I learned about true freedom. For years, I lived trying to earn my parents' approval, trying to prove I was just as worthy as Brandon. I sacrificed my own needs to keep the peace. I stayed quiet when I should have spoken up. But when I finally said no, when I finally put myself first, I discovered something powerful. I did not need their approval to know my worth. I did not need their validation to live a good life. The freedom that came from that realization was worth more than any relationship built on obligation and guilt. I am not angry anymore. I do not hate my parents or my brother. I actually hope Brandon gets his life together. I hope he learns to manage money, to make better choices, to build something stable. I hope my parents find peace with their decisions. But none of that is my responsibility. I can wish them well and still keep my distance. I can love them and still protect myself. Those things are not contradictions. They are balance. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to set a hard boundary with family? Have you been called selfish for protecting yourself? How did you handle it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story helped you feel less alone in your own struggles, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel so you do not miss future stories. Share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes we all need permission to put ourselves first. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope wherever you are in your own journey, you find the courage to choose yourself. You deserve relationships built on respect, not guilt. You deserve peace. Take care of yourself out there. Until next time.